My name is Benton Stokes. I'm a former fundamentalist, post-evangelical worship leader, and songwriter. I enjoy wry Manhattans, roller coasters, and road trips, just not all at the same time.
I'm Elane O'Rourke, and I'm a teacher, an author, and a spiritual coach. I was a philosophy professor and a liberal pastor in a couple of former lives, and these days I love aha moments and not-so-dry martinis.
We have conversations about life and God with a queer perspective, over cocktails, like you. This is Cocktail Theology. So what is this gorgeous drink we're drinking?
It's called Is For Ananas, and ananas is the French word for pineapple.
Ananas.
Ananas.
Okay.
And this is from David Leibovitz's book, Drinking French.
Oh, we like that book.
We do. Well, we like him because man knows how to cook. We do love a man who knows how to cook.
Yes, we do.
So it's pineapple juice, gin. It calls for Campari, but I did Aperol instead.
Okay.
And then for sweet vermouth, and of course we use Dolin because it's French and you gotta. So we'll find out how it is. Ooh.
That's yummy.
It is yummy. I admit that I was a little nervous, a little apprehensive about the pineapple juice, but that's good.
No, it's really good. It's like, I don't know, it's taking me somewhere tropical.
It is.
It's nice.
I like it. So what are we talking about today, my friend, besides ananas?
Well, today I thought we might talk about the importance. What is the importance? How important is church to the life of the Christian?
Oh.
One of the things that has been pointed out in the media regarding evangelical Christians who support Republican candidates is that they identify as Christian but don't identify as being churchgoers particularly. And
That's interesting.
I find that interesting too. Now, I'm not saying all of them are like that. Obviously, that's not true.
But it's interesting.
But there's a big chunk of them that don't attend church regularly and yet consider themselves to be Christians, and that's just in that little segment of I think there are lots of people who ascribe to a faith and they don't practice it communally with other people in community.
Sure, absolutely.
I've probably mentioned this on this podcast before, and I know you and I have talked about it a lot, how I felt in my growing up years, church played a very unique role in my formation as a musician, in my formation as a spiritual kind of guy, but I don't know that it played a huge role in my relationship to Jesus. Those two things were not necessarily the same to me. I didn't experience them as the same thing.
Okay.
So I'm wondering, listeners, if any of you feel that way, and I just thought we might talk about, because we've talked a lot about the church this season, and many of you may not attend church for a variety of reasons. Is that good, bad, or indifferent?
So when you say church, what do you mean?
I mean, I think for the use of this conversation, I'm talking about a local place where you go to worship at a stated time every week, or most weeks, and you gather with other people, and you worship, which means singing, praying, and you hear teaching of some kind from a pastor type, and that may also spill over into social activities or small group or discipleship of some kind.
Okay.
But wondering if people are availing themselves of these kinds of resources, if they feel like this kind of community is an important thing to be a part of.
Is what we do on Sunday nights church? So for those of you who don't know, on most Sunday evenings when we're not traveling, we lead worship, or Benton leads worship, and I talk about whatever it is I talk about and officiate over the Eucharist. We do that every Sunday in the evening. And it started out being in the evening because when we first started doing it, we had folks who had organized religious connections in the morning.
Right.
And needed something in the afternoon, wanted to do our stuff in the afternoon. So that's kind of how it started that way. And then it stayed there. But we don't do social events. We don't do other things. Does what we do count as church in the way you're using it right now? Because if so, that changes my way of answering this question.
I think it does.
Okay.
I think people who who participate in worship with us on Sunday evenings would say that it constitutes church for them.
Okay. All right. So what we're talking about is worshiping community, regular worshiping community. Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't know. What do you think at this point in your life?
Well, I'm kind of in a unique situation at the moment because as you mentioned, I lead worship for our gatherings on Sunday evenings. I'm also leading worship at 2 other small churches that are without a staff person to do that.
Right.
Once a month each. Mm-hmm. I enjoy being able to help these churches. Mm-hmm. I enjoy being able to share worship with them in the way that I lead worship, mm-hmm. and knowing that they appreciate that, and that's something that's important to them, and that means a lot to me. So I am worshiping with those bodies as mm-hmm. I am leading worship. I'm mm-hmm. also, there's also teaching, so there's a sermon, there's prayer, there's communion.
Which you don't do.
Things like that. I don't do any of that.
Okay.
I just do the music part.
Yep.
So on the weeks that I'm not involved at one of those 2 churches, I'm free on Sunday mornings. Mm-hmm. And I tend to attend church with you at a small Episcopalian church not mm-hmm. far from us because it kind of checks a lot of boxes for me. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not plugged in there. I'm not a member at this church. I don't know people by name at this church. I've never been to a social outing at this church. But I go on those Sunday mornings mm-hmm. and I participate in the service and enjoy it very much.
Worshiping community.
Yes, worshiping community.
Okay.
So really, I think if that's how we're defining church, and I think for this conversation it is, then I'm doing that regularly. I'm just doing it in a few different contexts.
Mm-hmm. The reason I bring this up, mm-hmm. and the reason I'm kind of really trying to tease this apart, is it seems to me that for most of us, a church body, a congregation, is not the center of our social life. For most, I think if by and large, mm-hmm. or a synagogue or any, still not the center of our social life.
Right.
And what the church and synagogue was a gathering of the community. Mm-hmm. I kind of wonder whether that kind of church actually exists outside of certain ethnic churches. And I say ethnic in a very big way, where I'm talking about a gathering of people with a similar history.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Or a shared music and prayer that is not kind of basic white bread.
Yeah.
Okay. Because we don't develop community and worship as part of that. The worshiping community has been its own event for a very long time, devoid of whether you ever see those people again.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, if we're just talking about the worshiping community per se, do I think it is absolutely necessary? I think it is important to have communal worship as a regular part of your Jesus following experience.
Yeah.
Now, that could look all kinds of ways.
Right.
But there's something about the gathering of the body of Christ. Notice I just went really high church on everybody. Mm-hmm. The gathering of the body of Christ mm-hmm. to bask in the glory and give praise to God mm-hmm. that is really important for the state of our souls. Yeah. In my view.
Yeah.
Because it reconnects us both to the people and to God. So I think that's important.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how often people find that. And I'm not sure that that's what church, in the big air quotes, generally means to people.
Right.
If people were gathering as a worshiping community to bask in the glory of God and give praise to God, and then with other people doing the same thing, mm-hmm. we wouldn't have clergy abuse.
Right.
As much.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have the impulse to potlucks. Mm. Right? Because the focus wouldn't be towards that.
Yeah.
And I'm saying with the potlucks as a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Sort of. I mean, for most people, I really hate them, but
Yeah.
Right. But it, a lot of it has to do with how you see the body of Christ, whether you see it as this kind of almost eternal gathering of the souls and spirits of the people who follow Jesus,
Right.
or whether you see it as a gathering of a local body of people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think that there is something really important about participating in the body of Christ in that very big sense, that understanding that we share something special with people from the 3rd century
Yeah.
and with people in Ethiopia.
Yeah.
And whether we ever meet them or not, whether we ever share food or not, whether we ever go to their garage sales or not, I want to go to a 3rd century garage sale, by the way. There's something about that. That is part of, for me, that sense of what you're talking about, the worshiping community. So, at least for me, I think there's something unique and special about that is important. Because Jesus didn't call one person to go alongside of him. Jesus called a group of people.
That's true.
So there's something about that. And if you feel like you're connected to other Christians across time and around the world, gathering with them is kind of important.
Yeah.
Which is very different than the view of church that a lot of us grew up with.
Yeah. I think a lot of, maybe most American Christians see their spiritual life, their relationship to God, their relationship to Jesus as something that's very personal, private, between me and God, right? And that's not the way that church is expressed in other cultures. We are such an individualized society that everything is between me and whomever,
right.
Me and God, me and Jesus, me and myself, or
That's right.
Whatever. And so church isn't experienced as a communal event as much as it is what is in this for me. Do I like the music? Do I like the speaker? Do I like the carpet? Do I, it's like,
no, it's true.
It's all that stuff. That's part of it. Is maybe, conjecturing here, but maybe the reason a lot of Christians don't go to church anymore is because they can't find that perfect gathering of people with the right fragrance of candles, with the right lighting, with the right volume level for worship, with the right comfortable seat to be in, and the right length of service. Like it shouldn't be more than, 40, 45 minutes. Our society and Christians are as guilty as anybody else that it's about me. It's about me. And I think if you're if you're going to church to get your praise on, if you're going to church to be fed, then maybe the reasons you're going to church are not the reasons you're talking about. And if that is your reason for going, is that nurturing your relationship to God or not? It could be a distraction. You could go in and just hate everything about everything. And in that case, certainly it's not helping anything or anybody for you to be there. When you can recognize that you are doing the same thing other people are doing all around the world at the same time, there's something very powerful and also kind of humbling about that, because it's the opposite of being about me at that point.
Yes.
I'm joining with everyone else.
Yes.
I'm singing old songs, and I'm participating in creeds that have been around for hundreds of years, and I'm, there's something very time-tested and time-worn and reliable about that. That's something that young people seem to be craving, is they want something that isn't fad or trendy. They would gladly attend a church where they didn't even have a sound system rather than deal with a band that sounds like Coldplay.
Right.
So I think it really does come down to, well, what are your hopes for being at church? What do you hope to give, and what do you hope to receive?
And there may be seasons when being in a body of people doing the same thing at the same time, I'm talking just about any worshiping community, is not good for you. if you've been damaged by, like literally damaged, I'm not talking about offended, I'm talking about damaged by the church, then that notion of everybody doing the same thing at the same time to the same words may be very troubling to you because you're experiencing the human frailty, fallibility, and effed upness underneath it, right?
Right.
And I totally get that. I think the understanding of the church is, I hate bringing in Latin at this point, but basileia is that bigger idea, is all about educating yourself or getting educated in that. And so you just understand what we're talking about, but also B, about having that attitude.
Yes.
Setting aside the worship that you lead and that I teach at, we are usually in a worship space in the morning 3 times out of the month.
Yeah.
And I will say to you that I do not always feel connected with the larger church, particularly in one of them. It takes me effort.
Sure. No, I get that.
My having to put in effort is not a bad thing.
Yeah, I hear you. You're not saying that as a negative. Sometimes we ought to be putting in the effort.
That's right. And I think if we are coming for the purpose of basking in the glory of God and providing praise and recognizing that we are part of something way bigger than we are.
Yeah.
That's all in our heads.
Yeah.
I mean, it's real, but it's also all about the attitude you go in with.
It's about what you go in with, right.
You know? Right. And if Aunt Matilda's way of coughing in the middle of whatever, or if she does the wrong thing, or some baby is loud, or whatever your particular thing is, if you understand that that's not why you're there, that's a whole different kind of thing. I think the other piece of church, as the way we're talking about it, is particularly worshiping communities. They allow us the opportunity to practice being what we would call Christian.
Yeah.
And to then go back and say, wow, I messed that up. I am so sorry. Because you're not going to see him at work the next day. You're not going to be sitting at the table with him the next week.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So there is something that can be nurtured in a church community or in any community that we are all figuring this out together. And aside from egregious problems, we're going to work at forgiving each other, which is also a learning, right? So I guess I would say that I think it's really important for people who follow someone who talked a lot about community and caring for each other, that we are involved in a community in our connection with God. What that looks like might be different. And I feel the need to say, I'm sorry, there was a big hermit movement in the 2nd and 3rd, 4th centuries. Hermits did not live in the same place, but they lived in connection with one another. It's an important thing to remember. There's nothing holy about saying, I need to separate myself from everybody.
Right. Listeners, this is an open conversation. We would love to hear from you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, about your experience with a local church. What does worship mean to you? We'll do another episode soon on just talking about worship. Local churches have a lot to offer. And I'm not just talking about as a recipient, but also as an opportunity for you to give and serve and learn and grow. We would love to hear about your experiences with that. And also, if you've had negative experiences with churches, we certainly welcome that as well. Cocktailtheology.com is where we always are. So please do reach out. Till next time.
Bye.
Funny how the view can change, how life just seems to rearrange itself. No matter what it was, I don't know how it goes, but look, moving on feels pretty good. Moving on feels pretty good.
If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a like and hit subscribe wherever you're listening right now. We welcome your comments, questions, and ideas for conversations and for cocktails. Please get in touch with us at our website, cocktailtheology.com. Cocktail Theology is a production of SFS. Our theme song is Moving On Feels Pretty Good, recorded by yours truly, Benton Stokes. You can find my music wherever you stream your favorite artists. Join us next Thursday for another new episode.